Hello guys, you're welcome back to my channel. My name is Tessie. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all, depending on where you are watching from. Hope you all are doing well, and thank you so much for stopping by. So this man here reviewed shocking truth about the Niger coup and why other African leaders should be very careful with the way they treat their citizens, because if it happened in Niger, it can happen in any other place. And our dearly beloved country, Nigeria, may not be excluded. I'm going to let you guys watch the video because this man, he made a whole lot of sense. I myself was blown away listening to him. This man reviewed how these African leaders are working with the so-called terrorist groups that are terrorizing their citizens. Not just that, how they stopped foreign powers from coming to fight against these terrorist groups, and how they created this thing now that is gradually coming to swallow them. I'm going to let you listen to him by yourself, but please, I want to beg you, help me by liking and also sharing with others so that YouTube and Facebook can recommend it to more people. Let's watch.
Now, were you taken aback when you saw the demonstrations today by hundreds of people who are actually backing the coup in Niger? They gathered for a mass rally in the capital, Niamey, but were you surprised by that at all?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
Because frankly, power is derived from the people, obviously. And when this happened, let me go into a few things. I remember Chiani is his name, the general, the current leader, and a statement that the military in Niger were making anyway, that when they were going after terrorists, Bazoum, the president, said to them, stop, don't. He was getting orders from the French not to go after the terrorists, and people are dying. Okay? So it therefore means that quite a few of the so-called democratically elected presidents across the continent are nothing but puppets, and that they are propped up by Western powers, not in the interest of the common persons or of the people, but in the interest of those, if you like, masters. Okay? And so there comes a time when the people have it up to here, and they say enough is enough. Because of course there have been infrastructural decay, the economy will be collapsing and all of that. And you know, Niger, of course, is being exploited every day. Their uranium, they're supposed to be a very rich country. The French are just exploiting them like they're exploiting the rest of Africa. You know, and people are getting educated. There's the internet, so you can get information. And so when the coup took place, why did the people not protest? Instead, the people were rejoicing, you know. And so I think that the rest of us should actually respect the wishes of the people. They are an independent nation. Whereas I'm not a supporter of military interregnum or coup, I do not think that that's the best way to take over power. But you must look at what, if we are talking about democracy, it therefore means what do the people want? If the people are fed up, it means they don't want the current administration. But what happens where the administration continues to impose itself on the people using the military to quell rebellion, and probably they're not, you know, elections or results are manipulated and things like that. So what you saw in Niger today is how the people feel. And if that's how the people feel, then I think the rest of us should be a bit more careful. We cannot cry more than the bereaved. You cannot be more Catholic than the Pope.
Than the Pope. Well, then I like how, you know, you set the tone of this conversation, because really and truly, when this coup, you know, came into fruition, the question on the minds of a lot of people was, what was the intent? Why were we seeing this happening in Niger? And like you've also highlighted, there's the presence of, you know, there's the military forces from the French, the US, even the UFC and the EU, and there are still several.
There are 4 military bases in
Niger. And we're still seeing several insurgent groups like Al-Qaeda, Islamic affiliates, and even Boko Haram continue to kill, you know, the citizens of Niger. So when we look at the body language of the people, at this point, we saw them waving Russian flags and saying that they believe that if they're supported by Russia, that the Wagner Group would be better fighters of this insurgency. So when we look at the standpoint of ECOWAS now that has said, I mean, they gave them a week, I think it's going to run out this weekend, saying that they're going to come in with military force, and then what us now seeing Burkina Faso and Mali and Guinea declaring their support for the coup in Niger. How do we begin to assess what is happening on the backdrop of this let's say deadline that ECOWAS has given Niger?
You see, I think ECOWAS spoke too quickly. The AU is there and has been more circumspect in the way it's looking and dealing with the matter. But I can understand why ECOWAS behaved the way it did, because the coup poses an existential threat to the current democratically elected leaders, in ECOWAS. Some of them feel if that succeeds, they might be next. I don't know, there's an infographic I sent. I don't know if it's ready yet. I would have liked to just explain something to us, something to do. If you look across Africa right now, when it comes out, I'll speak to it, but if you look at the continent right now, it's been divided effectively into two by what? Military, if you like, military hunters across the continent. From what you call it now, Guinea, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Chad, and Sudan. That's it.
Yes.
If you see the red, the red that you see there, these are all military regimes. Africa has been divided into two. You think it's an accident? Something is going on. What is happening here is that Africa has become the battlefield of the world powers right now. And because Africa remains the richest resource ground for the world economy, everybody is fighting for the heart and soul of the continent. Like what's happening in Niger right now. The EU have said they have enough uranium to last for a little while, but when that runs out, some industries are going to collapse in those places. Okay? So what is happening basically is Russia, I find this very interesting, whereas what is happening, they're good chess players, and so they are masters at this game. We're looking at the war in Ukraine. That when Wagner, it was as if they were rebelling against Putin, and they suddenly wondered, so what happened? We got fooled. They wanted to use that to enter somewhere, and they did. Don't be fooled. The Russians know the game that they are playing, except that the way they are playing is in consultation with the rest of Africa. Remember, they wiped out debts of how many billions? I can't even remember the figure. Is it $23 billion?
Let's look up those numbers now. But
yeah,
I did
please,
hear
just so that I don't give the wrong figures. But billions of dollars wiped away. So they're not just talking, they're walking the talk. Okay? Along with China, you can see what they're doing. What has been happening is the Western powers we've respected all this while, all well and good, they're great and all that, but they have been, exploitative in their relationship with Africa. There has been no respect for Africans, and for the first time, Africans are beginning to deal with people who show them a little bit of respect, although they may also be exploiting, but the relationship is more like we sit on the table together, not like a master and a servant. Now, the West does not like this, but Russia and China, who are great allies, whether we see it or not, China may be talking with US and all that, but the truth is the alliance with Russia still remains the same. The communism that kept them together is that same thread that keeps them till tomorrow. Now, so what you see is a situation where it is NATO on the one hand versus Russia and China. China is just in the background, but they're there just giving all the necessary backup. So what Russia is doing right now is backing up, this military to take over. You remember, and what we need to be careful about again, you see, Wagner came. into some of these countries, and people thought, I mean, when the West were pushing, they were sponsoring terrorism. From what I said to you earlier on, what happened in what the army were saying in Niger, that their own president was telling them not to go after the terrorists. Who does that? It therefore tells you that the West know what they're doing. They're promoting some of these people. I remember what Museveni said. I saw the video, so it's not like a second-hand story, where he talked about 6 African presidents. He didn't go, but he sent one of his ministers. They were going to Libya to broker peace, and they got a call from NATO saying what? Go back to where you're coming from. 6 presidents of independent African countries, and you're ordering them back. Who does that? And where is Libya today? So you can see that the things that have been happening have not really been in our best interest. You know, for so long, the West has done what it has done, but a few more people are getting wiser. And let me tell you how they recruit some of their people as well. Some of these people, whether from the side of the West or Russia and the rest, when we send our military to go for training, whether it's in Sandoz, it's in Russia, or wherever, these guys get indoctrinated. For your information, there are black Wagners now. When they come, you won't see the white man. You didn't see them in Niger. These are black Wagners, and there are many more. And so we have to be very careful as we jump into this war. I would think that a non-kinetic method is better. Let's dialogue. If you go militarily, the continent will be scattered. And as you can see from that belt there, it will just be them coming in one full force. Ecowas which was your original question, is depleted right now. So there's no unity in Ecowas anymore. And we are blocking Niger, our source of water for River Niger. Well,
Dr. Hai, you're mentioning now that non-kinetic approach would suffice.
In the immediate, yes.
But do we have examples where this has actually manifested? Concrete examples?
Well, have we done this before is a question I would also like to ask. Have we tried to go and militarily force? I know that in the Gambia, for instance, we might argue that Yahya Jammeh was forced to leave, but that was because he wasn't military. He was a civilian government president who didn't want to give up power. And so he was threatened and he left. Now, that's different from this. I don't know, and this is not, I'm not indicting our military, but quite frankly, I doubt that the morale and the unity of the Nigerian army is at its peak. I doubt. We don't have ECOMOG. ECOMOG is not, we used to have ECOMOG. So we had one force. Now you have to reconstitute, you know. So if we had that fighting force like we had before, you might say immediately deploy and all that. But we are battling things on so many fronts. We are battling Boko Haram. We still have not been able to deal with it. We are battling IPOB. We have not been able to deal with it. We are battling all sorts of, you know, things happening here. And if we allow, I heard the Vice President of America calling the Ecowas president and our president say, "Oga, well done, no. Make sure say that did not happen." No. You don't. You are a president of an independent nation. You do not take dictations from them. Look at what is in your country's best interest. When all is said and done, Niger is still your brother. They're still your neighbors. If you go in there, it's the ordinary citizens that you're going to kill. Should we not sit down and start dialoguing before threatening?
If I may, Shaita, pardon me.
Yes.
Based on what you said, looking at what's in our best interest,
yes.
like the move that we made with cutting off power,
yes.
and the Niger's coup leader has declared that he will not bow down to the pressure, and he's criticized those sanctions also imposed by West African leaders as illegal and inhumane.
Yes.
How far is too far in terms of our involvement?
Now let me put it this way, and I think everyone can relate to this. If you have a kid or a younger one that respects you, you keep pushing them, they continue to respect you. The day they look you back in the eye and say to you, "Go to hell, you've lost it all." Do you agree with me? The fear of an action is more powerful than the action itself, because once the deed is done, in a manner of speaking, excuse my language, once the deed is done, then there remained nothing else, so to say. I think that we should have just held the stick and say, we threaten, don't give a deadline. You might, okay, well, they've done it and all that, but it's not too late to back down. If we push and we lost it, like what Russia tried to do with Ukraine, they thought they would crush Ukraine immediately. It didn't happen that way. The minute you do that, you are demystified. And if we, as the giants of Africa, because Ecowas is Nigeria right now, really. Everybody is looking at us. They don't think the others are going to supply any ammunition or money or anything like that. They won't. We are battling with our economy right now. And then we're going to use our depleted resources to start fighting a war. Because the minute you do that, it's a declaration of war. And let me also say something that maybe some of us may not be conscious of. I speak Hausa very well. And I know that most of the people you call Hausa, your security men, the people selling dollars to you, most of them, and I say most of them, are not Nigerians. Many don't even speak Hausa. They're Nigerians. Many of them. And so when you declare war on their country, be prepared. The person in front of you might slaughter you at night and disappear. Let's be careful about what we're doing. Our borders are porous. Right now we have a lot on our plate. Let's look at our internal problem and not worry too much. But I understand where the presidents are coming from. Like I said earlier, it's an existential threat to their own stay in power, because for them it's like, if it happens here and happens here and happens there, who knows, I might be next. And I saw a video where those are called the Black Wagners. One of them said, we're coming after you in Ghana. Ghana, you're next, Nigeria and all that. I get it. But what it simply means is, if you have the people behind you, you have nothing to fear. How do you get the people behind you? Put the right policies in place. Because no coup plotter comes when an economy is good. No coup plotter comes when everybody loves the government. They come when people are dissatisfied, when they start murmuring, and when, in fact, they begin to cry for a change. So the best antidote is good government, good governance. Treat the people well, make sure the economy runs very well. That's the only antidote against coup. As for what is happening in Niger, I will again repeat, discretion is a better part of valor. Don't just jump in and say because you are a giant. You might see David 5 united.
David killed Goliath.
Exactly, even David killed Goliath. 5 united men can defeat 50 people who are not united or have low morale. And I dare say, our military, I don't know how strong the morale is. I don't even know how united they are going into this battle. Some of the soldiers from the north will be going to fight. Let me not say too much.
No, say this is where you have to express yourself.
You know, some of the people that you're sending to go and fight them, you might end up going there and then they join those people and start fighting you. You saw how close our former president was to although he was a friend of Bazoum. But the people you're going to fight are your very own brothers. You know? So that's why dialogue, I still think, is the best way. It's still the best way. A pattern is emerging. You saw that map. Africa has been divided into 2. I don't know what the end game is, but we must be careful. We cannot ignore what is staring us in the face. If all that force comes down on the rest of us, don't forget, South Africa is part of BRICS. They're on the Russian side. You get what I'm saying? So there will be a strong force from behind, and we'll just be caught up in the middle. And what happens?
Just quickly, who will be in the best position to do that mediation right now, based on what you're seeing?
I think that
in 10 seconds.
In 10 seconds. Let the AU come in and help us save face.
That was going to be my next question, the disparity of, the timelines, because AU gave one timeline and then ECOWAS gave a separate one, but we've run out of time. Very quickly, just to make sure we have our facts right, the total amount of debt that the African countries got written off by Russia amounts to $23 billion.
That's what I said.
But
so